So in this video, I gotta record something for the doctors and just in general. I haven't thought that it's important, but as the years go by, maybe it is. At the age of, I don't know, from 19 to 23, I've had a lot of head injuries. And at the age of 24, I noticed that I had this protrusion vein, at least I thought it was a vein at that time, on the outside of my skull, but under my skin, on the back of my head where I keep on getting whacked. I always thought it was just some big vein. It's about the thickness of bigger than a worm, a caterpillar. I mean, it's pretty thick sometimes, up to a caterpillar to a worm. It hurts, it's itchy, and it's now been there for over 9 years, and it keeps on hurting on the back of my head for 9 years now. Feels like a lumpy vein on the outside of my skull, not the inside where the brain is, and it's very feelable. And when I push on it with a finger, it gets extremely painful. And it almost seems like the shape of a vein just bulging out a little piece of it. And there's a lot of veins on the back of the head, but it's so puffed out, so wide, so thick. And the fact that whenever I touch it for 9 years, it hurts, that doesn't make much sense to me. If it's just a vein, like I figured it was 9 years ago, like I figured it was 7 years ago, like I figured it was 5 years ago, then it shouldn't still hurt 9 years later. I shouldn't be still touching it and itching it when I do my hair. I hit it, and all of a sudden, ow, and then I feel the why it hurts, and I'm like, oh, is that a tick? Or then I'm like, oh, it's that vein again. It's always there. Whenever I find it, I just itch my head, or I'm doing my hair, the comb touches, and I go, ow, what's that? And it's not a mole, it's not a tick, and I go, oh, no, that's that weird puffed out vein again. Why does it hurt? Why is it on the outside of my skull, and why is it so thick feeling? I mean, I don't have a vein in my single body that's thick, maybe a couple arteries in my wrist, but that's very thick for the back of my head. I mean, that's the thickness of those two things in the middle of your wrist. That's the thickest part of your wrist, though, that look like veins. It's weird. I think it's from one of my head injuries. Maybe something happened. Maybe a rock got in there or something. I don't even know what that could be. Maybe a protrusion, maybe a clot. I just don't know. But I've had so many scans of the head from seizures. I would hope that they would see something like that on the scan. If it was a rock, it should show up. So I do not believe it's any debris, but I don't really know. All I can tell for sure is for 9 years, on the back of my head, I have this vein-like thing, maybe a half an inch long, that is like a U, like a vein coming out like in a U, and it goes back in, and it's the thickness of the vein is like those arteries in your wrist that are the main biggest thick arteries in your wrist that you can see with your eyeballs. And when I touch it for the last 9 years, it hurts just poking it. It shouldn't hurt for 9 years. Nothing other than my neurological disorder should hurt for 9 years. Yeah, my stomach has been giving me issues for 20 years, but that depends on what I do. My esophagus gives me problems for 20 years, but that depends on what I do. My neurological disorder has been giving me problems for 25 years and causing me seizures, but the seizures depend on what I do, and the neurological condition depends on what I'm doing with my nervous system and what is going on with my body. All those things are easy to figure out that something is changing or something's going on. But this thing has just been hanging out there for 9 years, a little bump, and whenever I find it or itch my head or whenever I take a comb to my hair, I touch it, it hurts, and then I go, oh, what hurts over there? Then I start looking for a tick with my hands, and I come across that same vein. It's never moved in 9 years. It's always hurt when I touched it, and it's always felt like a vein under the skin, kind of lumpy, vein shaped. I've tried everything to look at it, and it doesn't look like much. It just looks like a vein under the skin. But it doesn't make any sense that it's that thick and it's hurt every time I touch it for 9 years. Anytime I just even poke it with a comb, and then we're talking about not a sharp comb. We're talking about like I have this thick comb that I just use, and then I have my hands that I use like a comb, just running my fingers through, and the lightest touch on this vein on the back of my head, and I just get a slight pain, and it doesn't bother me. I haven't even really brought it up to the doctors very much because it just seems like nothing to me. I have a neurological disorder to handle. I got the GI now. I got the kidneys to handle. I got black urine coming out of me. I got stomach issues, esophagus issues, and I'm not even looking into the cardio until the kidney and the other stuff is gone, and that could be 100 things. So the cardio, they're just going to treat. There's no way they're going to give me a diagnosis of what caused it because there's so many causes. But this is just something weird I wanted to put on the record, just in case maybe I should be talking to my doctor about this, but I have so much on my plate thanks to my mother and father that this is on the bottom of my list. I don't want to confuse my doctors by telling them about a lump on the back of my head. Meanwhile, I've had seizures for 25 years. I need treated. Meanwhile, I have no Social Security, zero wages for the rest of my life, and I'm about to live in the woods. So that's probably not the best thing to bring up with the doctors right now, is just a vein on the back of the head that has had a light amount of pain. I mean, I have severe pain in my kidneys right now. I can feel my nervous system hurting right now, and that little poke on the back of my head is nothing. But it is something in case it is something I don't know what it does and it affects me later. Now we have a record of me talking about it and mentioning it, so maybe the doctors can roll me over and say, that's it, if something else happens later. But it doesn't concern me very much. I just thought I would mention the facts. I know I've had this thing on my head for years and years, and whenever I comb my hair or rub my hands through my hair and just barely touch it, I feel a pain on it. And the shape of it is like a thick vein, and it's very, it goes, it's like a U. So the only part of it is feelable, but you can feel the pain in it as you touch it. And it's on the outside of the skull, and it's right where I've had several head injuries as well, which you can thank my father and mother once again for all my head injuries. If I was getting medical treatment when I asked for it, if my father listened to me when I was talking to him at age 7 in the doctor's office, age 9, 11, 13, if they listened to my brother, if they listened to my sister, if they listened to some of the doctors that were not psychiatrists, I mean, the psychiatrist, you can listen to them if they're listening to me. But if the psychiatrist is only listening to my mother and my mother's creating fantasies, there's nothing he can do, because a doctor is only as good as the information you give him. And if you're giving him a pile of shit, whatever that doctor gives back is going to be a pile of shit. So that's why I'm trying to give all the facts I know. I know I have this thing on the back of my head. It's in the shape of a vein. It's on the outside of the skull, under the skin. And whenever I've touched it in many, many years, it causes a little pain, not a lot, but that's weird. I've never had any lump or anything cause pain for that long. It's not a mole. It's not a tick. It doesn't go on the outside of the skin. It's under the skin in a shape of like a really thick vein. Maybe it's even a worm. Maybe it's something. I don't think so. It hasn't grown, shrank, hasn't moved, hasn't shook. But anyways, I don't know what it is.